Welcome, everyone, to a Rivalry Week edition of the South End Zone. I am Chad. You see Tyler right there. He is getting ready for that knockdown, drag-out battle with Georgia Tech. And we are getting ready for that old historical rivalry of Oklahoma and LSU. What? This is our Rivalry Week game? What the hell happened?
Mm.
What are you doing, SEC? Why does everybody else get to have Rivalry Week games that are like legit, and we have to like start some new thing that we've never. I mean, we did smoke them in that national championship game when Jason White couldn't get out of his own. Yeah, I don't know. It was just the pocket was collapsing around him all game long. You don't remember that, Tyler? You were like two, so it doesn't. 2003 is a distant memory. But
No.
LSU, Oklahoma, this is our chance. So look, Alabama fans, I know y'all have been swarming around the comments for the last several weeks because your team is like falling on hard times. You're finally one of the rest of us. You aren't living like your shit doesn't stink anymore. You actually have to live in the muck with the rest of us
hmm
and lose to teams like Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Oh, wait, that's right. We didn't lose to Vanderbilt. You did. You lost to Vanderbilt. And if we can knock off Oklahoma, that'll be two teams that have like a combined three SEC wins in the last two seasons, and two of those are to you. So
I mean,
anyway,
when will the Alabama fans realize what a bit is?
I know,
Like,
right?
I don't like, are you like, it's
We're just having
the,
fun,
like,
man.
listen, I also don't
It's
understand,
SEC.
I don't understand where, how do people not understand, like, have the same feeling of the sibling rivalry that is the SEC? We are able to, there is a world, and it's this one where we can
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously go to bat for the strength of the SEC as a conference while
Thank you.
simultaneously embracing the
The
the sibling
hatred.
rivalry that
Right.
is the SEC. Like the two things can happen at the exact same time.
Yes. I
Like
can
it,
at the same time have respect for the
yes,
quality of the programs in the conference
right,
and at the same time want to piss on their grave.
right.
Um,
Just like we would expect you
because
to do to us.
that's what you do to us. Like it's literally what you do to us. Like just get over it. Like we're gonna
Like,
enjoy this time just like you enjoy the time when you beat us by four touchdowns a couple of weeks ago.
yeah,
Like
like that
whatever.
happened.
It happened. Like we got our ass handed to us. We don't match up well against Jalen Milroe, apparently. We didn't match up well against Jalen Hurts. We matched up great against Bryce Young, though. Ha ha. And it just is what it is. But you know who you don't match up well with? Jackson Arnold and Diego Pavia. So let's talk about how LSU shut down Diego Pavia and that Vanderbilt offense last week, and how they can hopefully try to do the same
Yes,
with this Oklahoma offense this
tell us
weekend,
about it.
because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take. I think the way that the offense is set up, LSU has a better downfield passing game. Don't necessarily have the same, I think, quality of running game that Alabama has. Certainly not from the quarterback position, obviously. But LSU's been running the ball a good bit better as of late. And Garrett Nussmeier, when he's not, kind of in his head and making mistakes, he's actually been pretty good. And really, like at home, he's got the one egg that he laid against Alabama, and otherwise, he's been excellent at home. So you look at it, the games that have been rough for him, where he's thrown picks, had some trouble, and also where LSU has allowed a pass rush to get to him
hmm
in the swamp at Florida, 7 sacks in Kyle Field in a blackout game against A&M where they gave up a couple of sacks at South Carolina where Devin Kennard and Dylan Stewart got after him all day and he threw a couple of picks. It would have been pick sixes, but got bailed out by some penalties. So I look for him to do a little bit more like what he did against Ole Miss, what he did against Vanderbilt this weekend, some of those other performances in home games under the lights at Tiger Stadium. So LSU 6 point favorites. At this point right now, you're just trying to continue to play like for your own pride at this point because there's no playoff aspirations anymore. And it's just like, well, how do you want to finish your career? You want to finish your career tail spinning into oblivion, or do you want to like reach down, grab them, and go out there and finish the season off strong? And looking at how they responded last week against Vanderbilt, I'm pretty optimistic that LSU should be able to take care of business here at home. But as we've seen, this is the craziest season,
It
the
is
best and most exciting and most fun season I've ever
easily.
witnessed in college football. And I've been around twice as long as you have, and I'm telling you, like it ain't never been like this. The
No,
closest
listen.
thing probably is 2007 when we won the national championship with 2 losses, and it was just like every other week there was a new number one
Hmm.
in the BCS rankings. So that kind of energy, but this time now with a 12-team playoff. We're going to get into that a little bit later, where we're going to go through some of the insane scenarios that could happen that makes it to where we have like 20 some odd games this weekend that have like legit playoff implications. Some of them on the fringe, but they're still like these are things where like these teams could be in the playoff. And so if they win, they're still alive, and if they lose, they're not.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
every one of these games has actual implications as to who gets in and who doesn't,
yeah.
and or it could arrange
Hmm.
seeding accordingly. So
Got to play to give yourself a chance. That's what I like. You
that's right.
gotta keep winning.
That's right. So LSU looks to finish off the season strong, and we will be LSU 8-4 at that point. But that's
Oh,
okay. That's okay because we actually have a 15-0 season a few years ago. We won the national championship, so I'm okay with that because it's not the peak of the program that I root for as it is for some others. Georgia Tech, I don't know what their peak is, but I think it revolves somewhere around beating you guys.
yes,
That's
typically does.
I think
Listen,
they've
okay.
already got Miami pelt on the wall.
Hmm.
Now, granted, that was at home in Atlanta, but Athens ain't that far down the road.
It's not.
They should travel pretty well. You guys are
Yep.
favored by 3 touchdowns. How you
Hmm.
feel about it, man?
I think it's a rather large number. Friday night game, Black Friday night game in Sanford Stadium, going to be very interesting. You know, when you have these cross conference rivalry games, I think that it's going to be a more competitive game than that line lets on for sure. Um, Georgia Tech is always, that middle. Like I always compare Georgia Tech as the Arkansas of the ACC,
Mm-hmm.
where at least in the last couple of years, where it's like they're gonna finish with a above 500 record, most likely,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna get at least one person. And so far, they've gotten
Yeah,
Miami,
yeah.
and you never know what's gonna happen when they come to Athens. The way they are running their offense is actually more effective than in years past. They have like a two quarterback system. I know Haynes King is their but if you notice when he's in, it's always that like read option. Like
Yep.
he's got legs on him.
Very dangerous. Yep.
He is the second leading rusher on the entire team behind their running back Jamal Haynes. So you have Haynes and Haynes, Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, and then they also have a throwing quarterback among their ranks. I'm going to say his last name wrong. It's Aaron Philo, Philo. He lit the scoreboard up. At least got them back. Got them over the hump against NC State last week. And you
Mm-hmm.
look at the stats. With that game, it's like some of these games when they're running both of them, um, it's like for example, that's not the right game. Like I think like Haynes King was like 6 for 6 throwing, and then Philo was like 22 for 31 throwing,
Yeah.
like in the same game. But then Haynes King led the team in rushing yards.
Right.
So I think we have to be prepared for both looks. And I watched a little bit of footage of the Miami game and the NC State game where like the offense looks drastically different with the two of them. And it's like
Mm.
when you have um when you have King in there, it's like you have a full backfield. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like
Tight
like guys are
ends.
going different directions. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm pulling it or I'm not. I'm giving it, and you have jet sweeps and guys coming across and counters and things like
A lot
that.
of
And then
lot of lateral
right,
movement
a lot of
versus the
lateral movement behind
vertical.
the line.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then when Philo's in there, it's like empty sets. He's dropping back. He's looking deep. He hit a couple of deep balls
Mm-hmm.
against NC State. So I think we have to, whenever you play Georgia Tech, I mean, it's not like the old true triple option they used to run. Not, they've
Right.
kind of at least moved in the 21st century a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However,
Shout out to
it's
Gary Johnson, by the
shout
way.
out to yeah, right. They do mix up looks pretty well, and so I think we need to be
Mhm.
prepared for that. I think we need to stay disciplined because the way that UMass ran their offense. I told you I kind of mentioned it last week, as well as for all the things that I loved about all the true freshmen getting in and all the young guys getting in last week. On the front end of that game, UMass offense was productive against us. They ran a very similar read option, and they're running once again 2 quarterback system. The running quarterback and the running back got busy. They were moving the ball up the field. We need to finish tackles in the backfield. We cannot arm tackle guys. Once we have them, we have to bring them to the ground. Like there were so many times where we were making contact, like almost like right after the mesh point, or a second after. Like we were meeting them behind the line, and then like they're able to scamper. Like Dylan Sampson did it. The UMass running back did it. Yeah. Where it's all of a sudden like we have them dead to rights, 4 yards back, and it turns into a 4 to 5 yard game. We cannot have that. And we have that discipline down the field. I think all in all, I think we can handle them. I feel pretty good about that. I think it's going to be a better game than sometimes some of these games that we have with Georgia Tech are kind of stinky, and that's fine. Like it is what it is. But I like the way that that Carson. I know that it was against UMass's defense, and he was essentially just drop it back and kind of throw him wherever he wants. But it's, guys are making catches. Arian Smith was doing what Arian Smith will do. I think their secondary is a little undersized. We need to take advantage of that. I know they got number 44 effort in the middle with the cowboy collar, going to be roaming the field. So probably shouldn't throw near over the middle to anybody. We like to keep people healthy. Now that we have the SEC championship game, I'm not worried about a spread. If we can get in there, take care of business, look good doing it.
Stay healthy.
Stay disciplined, make the tackles, make the throws, make the and I feel like I'm saying the same thing every week because it's nothing crazy. You don't have to be like a crazy football mind to say that tackling somebody is good. You know what I mean?
We have the same problem, and I don't know what it is about this generation, but like dudes this generation love to just throw their shoulder into somebody.
They do.
With no arms. Like rap. What are you doing?
These the high school, these big running backs will eat that shit.
Yes.
Like if you try to
and keep running.
You hit them with a shoulder up high, they'll be like, okay, thanks, and run away. I'm no defensive expert, but like at the same time, like I know that bringing somebody to the ground is a better way to tackle.
That was laps when I was a kid playing. Like you're like, wrap up, get out, give me another lap.
Yeah, dude, unbelievable. So we could not have that. I know Kirby's been on the boys about that. I think Carson is feeling more confident since the Tennessee game, and so I think that we'll be able to handle the Yellow Jackets coming to town. But I think it's going to be close to 19.5. I really do. And that's going to be okay. I think if I had to guess, I bet you they hit us with one early, and people are going to be like, "Oh!" And then we beat them, we crush them in the second half. That's how I see this game going. And then we'll look to see what happens with Texas and Texas A&M as long as usually we can take care of business on Friday night.
About that one. So that's where we're going next.
All right.
Number 3 Texas, 5.5-point favorites on the road at Texas 8-4. Did they become Texas 8-4 this weekend? Or did they become Texas 9-4 next weekend?
Rare air.
It's it could be Texas 9-3, but then 9-4 right after. So I've been watching, and Reed is doing his thing, but he's missing throws here and there. And you saw what an Auburn defense did to him. Now, granted, that was in Jordan Hare at night. Crazy atmosphere, noise, all that stuff. It's going to be the opposite. Texas is going to have to go into the Lions den and get it done. But I think it's tough because we kind of just give this this tacit endorsement of Texas when their big game this year at home, they got their ass kicked by Georgia.
Yeah, I mean
they don't have any good wins, no signature wins.
They're going to Kyle Field at night.
And they're going to Kyle Field, and A&M actually has they got us, and now granted they lost that game to Notre Dame. They lost
first game.
They lost.
There's a little bit of
first game, yeah, but they've got they have that big win against Missouri, who say what you want to say. I know Missouri got embarrassed by Alabama and A&M, but that's pretty much it. Until they went on the road into Williams-Brice Stadium at night and got sandstormed.
Literally.
So it's and then went into Jordan Hare and
War
got
Eagled.
Auburn, got Auburn.
Got War Eagled.
So yeah, War Eagled. So I'm not. I really don't have a read on this game. I think like talent wise, just from what we know about like the dudes Texas has up front on both sides of the ball, the athletes they have on the edges, both in their secondary and their receivers, the quarterback tandem that they have, where even if something happens to yours, you got
Mhm.
Arch Manning coming in.
True.
So like it's going to be it's not the same as what two-headed monster Texas
No,
A&M has with Connor Wegman and his sorry ass and Marcel Reed trying to do his best Jalen Milrow impersonation.
that's
Both
exactly what
good
I
and
was gonna
bad.
say.
Both good and bad.
It's
Um,
the year of the running quarterback.
yeah.
That's what it feels
So
like.
this one, but this is it. This is like Texas 8-4. We've been clowning them and everything, but the reality is they win this game, and then they win next weekend. They're in the playoff as the
Hmm.
SEC champion representative. And you guys are going to have your work cut out for you, whichever team comes out of that one, because either you got to rematch Texas and you got to beat them again, or you get a Texas A&M team that is kind of scratching and clawing and staying alive. Speaking of scratching and clawing and staying alive in sandstorms, they're going to be playing in Fake Death
Ooh,
Valley in Clemson, South Carolina, but the Gamecocks
mm.
are like right for the picking. We talked about it last week, and then you heard it on the college football playoff show
Because they watched the show.
Tuesday night. That yeah, they watched the show. They saw that like, hey, you know what? These guys are onto something. South Carolina is a potential playoff team because if they
No,
win this game against Clemson,
yeah.
not only does that knock Clemson down, but Alabama's not going to have a win
Mm,
like that to
nope.
stay ahead of South Carolina. And then what is Alabama going to have as their claim to fame in deserving to be in the playoff instead of South Carolina? A narrow 2-point win against South Carolina at home versus they just lost to Auburn. I mean, not to
Yeah.
Auburn, to Oklahoma.
You
They're
could call
because
it.
this is where the recency bias thing starts to
Mhm.
come in, and we've seen it before with both with the college football playoff, but also with the NCAA tournament. Like your last 10 games play a big role in the basketball tournament,
Mhm.
and the seeding and who gets in and who doesn't. I think the same thing could come into play here, where
For
if
sure.
South Carolina's last several games are knocking off A&M, knocking off Missouri, knocking off Clemson,
Hmm.
and taking care of business otherwise, beating Vanderbilt 28 to
Hmm.
7, like they've got like their body of work the last 5-6 weeks is actually pretty good. And then you go back and look, a narrow loss to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, a a loss at the Horn when they missed a field goal to us in like week 3 or 4, and then
They have
their
bad
one
losses
their one big ugly loss was to Ole Miss.
Oh, West.
Yeah, Ole
Sorry.
Miss 27-3 at Oxford, and then we saw what Ole Miss did to Georgia. Like and that's the thing about the SEC is you can say what you want to say about how maybe it's just not good. Like no, like you can't just say like maybe they're not good when you look at like the dudes on
Yeah.
both sides of the ball on these teams that we're talking about, and there are like NFL first round draft picks on all these rosters,
Hmm.
and there's some second and third round picks too.
Yep.
Um, and so South Carolina, legit shot. So this is another one. So we are now you guys game, the Texas 8-4 game, and this game. That's 3 games already with playoff
Yeah.
implications. Another game with playoff implications. We move from South Carolina to Tennessee, where Vanderbilt
Mm.
welcomes the Volunteers into Nashville, 11-point favorites. I know you have some feelings on this one. What's your take on here?
Listen, I really, really, really like Vanderbilt to win this game. I really do. In Nashville, I was doing a little research. the all-time series between these two teams. These teams have been playing for quite a long time. The all-time series is 78, 32, and 5 in favor of Tennessee. Technically it's 80, 32, and 5, but they had to vacate 2 of the wins because of Jeremy Pruitt. And apparently one of the games is exhibition because half the team and coaches were playing World War One. Other than that, it's been very in favor of Tennessee here. The reason I like Vandy, it's at home, and there's one man who I think makes the biggest difference in the world, and that's Diego Pavia, a man who I literally embodies the brand of like "fuck you" football.
Yeah.
Literally leading the team in passing yards and rushing yards. I think that they can give the Tennessee defense more enough because like Carson Beck was even able to escape the pocket against this Tennessee defense. It's very clear that Nico might not be ready. Like obviously he looked pretty decent
He
in the
has his
first half
moments,
against us
but
for
yeah,
sure. Like I will say it and I will say it and I'll say it again.
but
Nico
his
will be good.
consistency's not there. Yeah, his
Exactly.
consistency's not
He
there.
will be. He is good. He will be better. He just is not
Mm-hmm.
very consistent right now, and that's to be expected from a younger guy. That's fine. However, this is the perfect like in-state rivalry. You're coming to our
Mm-hmm.
house. We got some shit
Mm-hmm.
to play for now. You know,
And
Vanderbilt
we
is
can
already
ruin your
bowl
season.
eligible. Can
Yeah.
ruin your playoff season.
Mm-hmm.
We're already bowl eligible. Vanderbilt can play for a better bowl game too with this game. And it's it's Nashville, it's Thanksgiving weekend, it's all the
Mm-hmm.
makings of a lovely, lovely little brother versus big brother in conference, in state upset. I really, really like Vanderbilt to if any chaos is gonna happen. I also really love South Carolina to beat Clemson. I didn't get to say anything about that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but this is my I'm not going to be shocked if it doesn't happen, but I
Right.
really love it, and I think it's a lot more possible than people think.
Yeah, no, for
So,
sure. For sure.
putting Tennessee. This is my official clip it, whatever. I'm putting Tennessee at upset alert Saturday afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee.
There you go. And it's really not even Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. It's Nico versus Diego. And
True.
that's it. Because that's pretty much what it's been reduced
It's
to.
gonna it's gonna be it's a quarterback
It's,
battle.
it's a quarterback battle. Oh, but could you imagine if Tennessee and Alabama lose to Vanderbilt in a
Vanderbilt?
season where oh, and
Like if it was
Alabama
Nayland,
could Alabama lose to Auburn too? Could Alabama take three teams? Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma, who won a combined like three SEC games the last two seasons, and could three what are well. I'm sorry, it would be like five or six at that point because Vanderbilt has like three or four already this year. But that's it. And then Auburn had like one last year, and Vandy had one last year. Oklahoma didn't win any because they weren't in the conference yet. But that's the point. So you could have three teams with a combined six SEC wins in the last 2 years, and three of them could be against Alabama.
dude.
This spread is suspiciously tight
You think this
for
is tight? Do you think for this game?
I think
Yeah.
in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you looked at the last like 20 years of Alabama and Auburn
No,
in
that's no.
Tuscaloosa?
I'm with that.
It's like
I
some
guess I
30
should.
point blowouts.
No,
It's all 30
well,
point blowouts.
I know how the game turns out, but I guess I was
Yeah.
talking more about the pregame spread.
Mm-hmm.
And think about this too. This is the first time where you have two brand new coaches on both sidelines for the Iron
That's
Bowl
true.
in a
Yeah.
long, like two brand new. I know that Auburn has run through a couple coaches.
No,
This is the,
Freeze was there last year.
but I'm talking about both sidelines. Both sidelines.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, you're
okay,
no longer coaching against Nick Saban.
right.
This is the
No,
first
no more
Iron
Nick
Bowl.
Saban and no more, whatever
Gus
Tommy
Malzahn.
Bowden or Gus Malzahn or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I got you.
Yeah, no, Harsin and Cadillac. I would have listened. I would have
Mm-hmm.
liked Cadillac Williams to stay as a coach at Auburn, but um, this is the first time without Nick Saban in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make Auburn's chances a little bit better? Do you think that Auburn? Do we think that Auburn has a legitimate chance? I mean, we saw how they played against. Realistically, they should have beaten Oklahoma. They
Yeah.
choked that
So
away.
listen. So 2 weeks ago, I would have said not a chance
Right, me too, and I completely
until I
agree.
saw them play against Oklahoma, and then I was just like, uh,
Yeah,
Alabama might not be good. Like
yeah.
this is ugly. Like that.
Mhm.
that's shout
They
out to
have
Jeremiah
flashes. They
because
can play. They can play parts of the game that are great.
I've been giving Jeremiah crap for saying Florida's not a good football team and Auburn's not a good football team and Oklahoma's not a good football team. I don't disagree with you. I think Auburn and Oklahoma are bad. I think Florida's actually good. I think they just had a really insane schedule. I don't think Auburn or Oklahoma are good football teams. I think they're better than people give them credit for. They're certainly not Purdue, who's like the worst team in college football. Like that, there's a difference between like being abjectly horrible and being not
Relatively bad for your
not worthy of the
conference.
top 40. Okay,
Yeah,
like the top 40 is like the good teams, but anyway, I digress. Um, Auburn, Alabama. Watching how Alabama played against Oklahoma. Granted, I get it's Brett Venables. He was gonna get somebody
right.
most likely.
They both were.
Really good defensive coach came in with a really good game plan, and they executed it really well against Alabama's offense to where they practically shut them out. Like
Mm-hmm.
holding them to a field goal
It's
is
insane.
insane.
That's ridiculous.
And then running the ball for 260 yards on them is
With your
insane.
quarterback.
With 100 of it coming from your quarterback,
Yeah,
and he threw for 60 yards. Like it's ridiculous. So like, could Peyton Thorne and Auburn do that?
that's what I'm saying. Peyton
It's
Thorne.
possible. I would have never thought
Yeah.
that. And then I saw the way they played against A&M. Like that's what I'm saying. Before last weekend, seeing how Auburn played against A&M, although I did think Auburn was going to beat A&M. I
We all
did
did.
had a good feeling about
The
that.
ball knowers know.
But seeing how it happened, I was expecting it might be like, hit Marcel Reed, scoop and score, or like get a pick
Right.
six or something
Some
like that.
fluky
No,
stuff.
they moved the ball on them.
They beat him.
And they beat him. They just
I
beat
mean,
him.
they almost tried
They
to
beat him in
not.
overtime.
Yeah.
They executed better in overtime too on that
Yep.
short field.
Mm-hmm.
So um, Auburn's execution is on the uptrend, and Hugh Freeze is a good coach. Like, say what you want to say about everything else about Hugh Freeze,
Yeah.
but the dude, he's like the Lane Kiffin of he's like a Dollar General Lane Kiffin,
What?
where like I don't think he's good enough to actually be consistently, sustainably good, but he's good enough to get your ass on a weekend. Ask those hookers. Anyway, so, uh, but no, like the way that I saw Alabama play last weekend and the way I saw Auburn play, now I'm like, dude, this is fair game, even though it's in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that spread is telling me that like I'm not alone in thinking this is not your typical Auburn going to Tuscaloosa and getting their ass handed to them game.
Right. Right.
It could be, but I'm way more less surprised now if Auburn wins this game by 2 touchdowns than I would have
I
been 2 weeks ago.
I give it Auburn win. If Auburn wins, 2 touchdowns is insane. I give Auburn winning at
They
the
lost
horn.
to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns.
No, you're right. I would say given the what the game is, I would give Auburn winning at the horn.
Bro,
But now
imagine.
Thorne.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go finish your
But
thing. I got.
now we're seeing Peyton Thorne, at least in the fading days of the November and this college football regular season, actually
Mm-hmm.
show us why he's been the starter for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Because it's always been so confusing to me.
Yeah.
Like, and I've shit on him constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like for him to actually go and handle a ranked team and look good doing it, and you're like, okay, well, I guess that's why he's their starter. And I think
And in the
he's
2 minute
up
offense,
against
like
it.
executing the ball, it just
Yes,
executing the 2 minute offense, getting the ball all the way down
like
the
it wasn't
field and getting
fluky.
that
He
field
looked
goal.
good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and I think going to Tuscaloosa is going to be hard. What they said, they haven't won Tuscaloosa since Cam Newton. Is that what?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's also a lot rare air as an Auburn
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. Like for the last guy to be is Cam
Yeah.
Newton.
Yeah, it's been
So I
15
mean,
years since they won that game.
yeah. So that you're talking about rare air, and it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that Auburn can keep it close. I would love to see them win. I'd be shocked if Alabama could drop two in a row like that. That'd be a new. Well, obviously, 4 losses is as low as it gets for Alabama because that's where we're at right now. But I don't know. Like I think that if Auburn wins, they might. I mean, Thorne needs to execute. I still think you might need a fluky thing or two to happen in Auburn's
Mm-hmm.
favor.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn can also not. I also fear the same thing will happen for Auburn as it is A&M. Like if we see Auburn go up massive early, I wouldn't feel too good about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we'll have to see. This is going to be one of the better Iron Bowls we've had in a long time. It's not a foregone conclusion, especially going into
Right.
Tuscaloosa. I like that. I love that for college football. You know, you talk about, I know we'll talk about this game later in the week, in the episode. That Auburn, the Iron Bowl is has the is one of the best rivalry games, but it's not the best given because it's such a lopsided rivalry. But tomorrow could be Friday could be a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just
Saturday,
thinking,
excuse me.
I almost interrupted you because I was just laughing to myself internally, thinking of, imagine if you had the foresight and the balls to just go alternate spread Oklahoma minus 20, minus 20 and a
I
half.
think a book would give you those numbers because they think you're just.
Oklahoma minus 20 and a half, like plus 8,000 or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
don't think a book would give you that because it's not worth even posting that.
Right, exactly. It's like, we're not doing that. We're not wasting data. We're not wasting server space on those
Yeah,
lines.
right.
Shut up. It was a lot. So there's a few other SEC games that are like a little less important. Florida State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Although Ole Miss, Mississippi State does have some playoff implications because Mississippi, Ole Miss is still alive. They're playing the worst team in the SEC, 0-7 Mississippi State. So it's one of and it's the Egg Bowl. It's one of those, like, you never know until you play the game. Somebody could try to pee on a fire hydrant and ruin their chances at winning a game. But no. So and there's a few others that are Missouri, Arkansas, no playoff
I
implications
like
really there,
Arkansas
but
there. I like
I like
Arkansas there a
Arkansas there
lot.
too. But I'm not going to go into great depth on
That's
those
fine.
because we've got so many other games that do have playoff implications. And look, so we've gotten and by the way, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We thank y'all for coming in. Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. We appreciate everyone coming through, and please keep the comments coming. We love it. I love the back and forth. I hope you guys realize that it's all in fun. We're just having fun here. I don't actually hate any of y'all. I don't hate anyone. Even when you tell me I suck, it's fine. I do. I know. I'm terrible at this, but I'm here anyway, and you're still watching. So happy Thanksgiving, and recognize that this is an SEC show. People are saying, like, y'all need to focus on your schools, your programs, your teams. Like, we do. And then we also talk about the rest of the SEC and the rest of the country because this is a college sports show. It's
It'd
an
be ignorant to not.
SEC-centered college sports show. But if you have watched this show, it's called the South End Zone. We did that because it's about, like, football in the South, but it's football in the South in the context of the entire country and the whole playoff system and all the teams, because it all is relevant as college football fans, as college sports fans. We have the big SEC logo in the bottom of the screen here. Like, we're going to talk about the SEC teams. And so when your team loses to Auburn, if you're Texas A&M, we're going to talk about it. We're going to make fun of you because you lost to Auburn. If you lose to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, we're going to make fun of you. If you lost to Vanderbilt, we're going to make fun of you because we haven't forgotten. You lost to Vanderbilt, Alabama.
Listen, we've had to have therapy sessions after we choked it from against Alabama. We've had to have therapy sessions when Alabama went in and whooped LSU. Like we
Yes.
accept the way our programs are, and it'd be ignorant to just nobody none of y'all would watch this if we only sat here and talked about Georgia and LSU. All the people that are commenting right now would not be here if all we did was talk about Georgia and LSU. Like,
that's right.
We would, okay, no offense, we'd sit here waiting. All we'd be talking about is how LSU is waiting for their bowl game, and
Right.
we're hoping to win in Atlanta. Like, that's it. That's it. That's the episode. Congratulations.
Right.
Nothing else matters.
Boring as hell.
Like, be ignorant to not talk about college football on a greater scale, because at the end of the day, every stadium has a south end zone. Every stadium has a south end zone. That's
every
why
stadium has a
this.
south end zone. Exactly. And every stadium has a south end zone, and none of this stuff matters if we aren't talking about it in the context of, like, the greater picture. Like we're not.
Comments got us ranting.
We don't just have spring games against each other all year. Like, we play other schools. They're part of this conversation. Anyway, we appreciate everybody coming through. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody has a great time with friends and family. Everybody stay safe. Have a feast. Enjoy your time. And hopefully you enjoy this episode as part of your Thanksgiving weekend festivities. Someone who could be enjoying the Thanksgiving weekend and
That's all in
beyond
on
more
this.
than anybody expected is the Tulane Green Wave, because we are getting to a point, my friend Tyler, where it might not just be Boise State getting in as a conference champion from a non-power four conference. We could potentially have, we're going to get into the Big 12 in a minute, but Tulane will be playing Army for the American Conference Championship next weekend. We thought there was a possibility it could be Navy and Army, but Navy fell on hard times. It didn't happen, isn't going to happen. So now you have Tulane on a collision course with Army, and these two teams are sitting there. Army with one loss at 25, Tulane with two losses at 17. But those two losses are to, who was it? It was Oklahoma and Kansas State, I think.
There was two
Um,
Power Four teams for
yeah.
sure. I know that.
So
I think Oklahoma was definitely one of them.
yeah. So and granted, that was early in the year, Oklahoma, not good Oklahoma. Not that there is a good Oklahoma necessarily, but the one that beat Alabama this weekend certainly better probably than the one that beat Tulane. But Tulane's been playing a lot better lately,
Yeah,
and they've been beating the doors off some
yeah,
people. Well, it was
yeah.
Kansas State.
It was K-State, Oklahoma, and they played them in back-to-back games.
Yeah, back to back. Yeah, and I think they were both on the road too, if I'm not mistaken.
They had Kansas State at home and
They
lost
did. Okay.
34-27, and they went to Norman and lost 34-19.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, but Tulane is at that. So looking at them at number 17, if they if they continue to win and end up at like 13, 14, 15, and the Big 12 champ is ranked 16th, Big 12 champ ain't getting in.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We did
This is
not realize.
insane.
I only learned this like midway through the season that like the Power Four are not required
Right.
to have their champions represented in
Yeah. It's just the
the
five
playoff.
highest ranked champions of
Right.
conferences,
And
period.
however that may land. Like
Which
obviously
could
like
which could make it mean that like the SEC champ or the Big Ten champ wouldn't be in, which is kind of crazy because how awful would the conference have to fall off for it to be
right.
that way?
But you
Where
already
you're,
see that they're making Boise State your four in the Big 12
hmm
champ, the projected Big 12 champ, which is now Arizona State, which we'll talk
right,
about as the 12. But like you're right, like it's not a requirement to have the
hmm
Power Four champs in. I thought it was, and that's stupid of me. That's ignorant of me.
yeah. Well, same
But
here. I did too.
there's a possibility, there is a scenario in which there's so much craziness in the Big 12
hmm
that there's what a 3-loss champ is a possibility. And Tulane, yeah, if they could sneak up and they could
Yeah,
win the championship, they could be sitting there and have a potential look.
right. And the other thing is too, we have to recognize that if the Big 12 champ is a team that like takes care of their business and
Oh
finishes
yeah.
strong, then you have a two-loss Big 12 champ that gets two victories that are, and we're going to get into the games that involving all those
Hmm.
teams here in just a second. But um, let's say it's Arizona State BYU or something like
Hmm.
that. They win their next two games. They win their games this weekend, and then they go and whoever wins, that's two more. That's a half-ass quality win this weekend, and then next weekend in the Big 12 championship game, it's definitely a quality win. You're beating a top 25 team at that point, and so you probably leapfrog Tulane, but it's not guaranteed even with that. So that's what we're talking about here. So yet another game with playoff implications. The regular season says I am here to matter,
I
because it
matter.
does. I matter. Pay attention to me. Oregon State has had a rough year, but they have a chance to play spoiler here against Boise State as well. Because if Boise State loses another game, and they've been playing with their food, call it whatever you want to call it, tempting fate, having little brushes with death. A Wyoming team that they should have beaten by 3 or 4 touchdowns, they were in a dogfight with last week. they were kind of in control, but it was still way closer than it should have been. Ashton Jeanty looks like he's playing hurt, although he's still rushing for. He hit the 2,000-yard mark last weekend against Wyoming. They're 3 touchdown favorites at home against Oregon State. I I gotta say, I haven't seen them play on the blue field in a minute, so it feels like they've been playing on the road for a
They
while
have
too.
they've done a lot of road
So
games, I feel like.
yeah,
And you got the Pac-2 champion coming to town.
yeah,
I mean, we thought that they were going to whoop Wyoming, and they
hmm
certainly did. That's 2-8 Wyoming. Now, I would have to guess that Oregon State, being the Pac-2 regular season champion, as high of an honor as that is nowadays.
right.
Um, 5-6, by the way, 5-6
Yeah, I was
Pac-2
gonna
champ.
say
Um,
it's not taking much to win the Pac-2 these
five and
days.
six, 5-6 Pac-2 champ. I mean, we'll have to see how much Genty can go. Like, they still have their Mountain West Conference championship
Mm,
coming down the road here.
yeah.
Um, I, I mean, I really wanted Genty to win the Heisman, and there's a lot of
hmm
professional players that are lobbying for him. If you on social media, if you've seen, a lot of pros are like, clearly the guy who rushes for over 2K was sniffing Barry Sanders' record beginning of the season. Um, should win it. However, I think that Travis Hunter has the hype train rolling. And if he continues to produce even at his own level right now, like which includes receiving touchdowns, especially if he gets another pick on there, like there's no way, because what he's done has never been seen before. Obviously, Genty is still the statistically best running back in the nation. So it's,
Right.
what do you value more? And that's, as long as it's not a quarterback, I think I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I did cash out my Genty bet, and that's not because I don't believe he could do it. I don't believe the committee will see that he can do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting at right now. I like Boise State to win. I think it might end up being closer than this 19.5, just because of
hmm
Genty's status.
Yeah. No, for sure. So getting into that Big 12 arena now, we get to
They dropped to
Colorado.
25.
Six,
Wow.
yeah, 16.5 point favorites against Oklahoma State at home, but they can still win the Big 12. So, and then that's where it starts to get complicated, because does Colorado have enough juice with a win against a crappy Oklahoma State team that has like 3 wins this weekend? And then if they win the Big 12 championship, is that going to be enough to move them,
I know.
what, 10 spots maybe to get ahead
Yeah,
of Tulane? Probably not.
they need some help if you're going to make, because
hmm
they need either BYU to lose, or they need Arizona State to lose. They need one of them to lose to be able to
but it's
make it.
still but this is still one of those games where it's like, look,
Yeah,
they could still get in
they
the
could
playoffs.
absolutely do it. And
If
it's so
Tulane
sad.
stubs their toe and loses the so here's the other thing though. With Army where they are, if Colorado wins the Big 12 and Tulane loses to Army in the American Championship, now it's you're looking at the resumes of Colorado and Army and
Mhm.
where they end up in the rankings and all that. So it's just that's what I'm saying. Like, all these games have playoff implications. It's
Right.
crazy. Like, every one of them has like a
Especially
you
all the
could
Big 12 games this weekend.
you could win. Yeah. It's so Jeremiah was asking, like, are these winning your in games? Like, no, but like, they're
You gotta
losing your
win.
out games.
Yeah,
Some
they're
of them are
definitely losing
losing
your
your
out.
out. you know.
No,
So it's
yeah,
kind of the same thing. It's like you can't get in if you don't win.
that's
Um,
very true.
so now another thing that starts to get interesting, you get into the Big Ten. We're going to keep going with the Pac-12, but I mean with the Big 12. But I did these kind of in like chronological order of when the
Mhm.
games are being played. Um, but Michigan, Ohio State, this one starts to get interesting, and I wanted to take this opportunity to say how silly I think it is that the way that they talk about the rankings and the bracket on the show when they're revealing everything is like, this is how it would be if it ended today. Well, but it's not going to end today,
Right,
and so like having Ohio State number 2 and Oregon number 1 is really stupid, because that is the least likely thing to happen.
because they have to play each other again.
They have to play each other again.
Yeah,
And if they don't play each other again, it's even less likely to happen, because that means
right,
that Ohio State lost to Michigan.
right. So, yeah, I
Because the
think
only
that,
way they
yeah,
don't play each other again is if Ohio State loses to Michigan.
that whole
And if
fake
they
bracket,
do play each other again, then either Oregon's not going to be 1 or Ohio State's not going to be 2.
yeah, that whole fake bracket is literally just for talk. Like,
It
that
is.
whole fake bracket is just a generate conversation until the next one
hmm
comes out, because And it took me a while to realize that ranking and seeding were not the same thing anymore. Like it took me a minute because it's like, oh, but 13 is somehow above 12, and then I realized what it all meant.
Right.
But yeah, it's the whole fake bracket because you're then projecting conference champions, but then you're right, like,
But you're
I
not.
mean,
You're
yeah, Ohio, I
projecting a
mean, oh
conference
yeah, yeah,
champion, but you're not
right,
projecting the team that loses that game to
exactly,
lose.
for
So
sure.
you got.
So
It can't be both. They
no,
can't
it can't
both
be
win
both.
out.
No, they both. Yeah, so like, yeah, so yeah, I completely agree.
So
I think that's very interesting.
and then the other part of it is too. So like, let's say that game happens and Ohio State beats Oregon by 3 touchdowns. Does Oregon stay above Penn State? No.
Which is
You know what
crazy,
I'm
even
saying? Because
crazier.
because Penn State lost
They
by like a
should, but they
touchdown.
won't.
Yeah, they should, but they won't. Anyway, it's crazy. And then you flip it around and like, what if it happens the other way? What if Oregon says like, yeah, that wasn't a fluke, bitch, and they beat them by 3 touchdowns?
Yeah,
There's no way Ohio State's anywhere close to number 2.
and then they
They're
end up
probably
with
they're probably
their
playing on the
second loss,
road.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they'll be their second loss. But I'm just saying they might be playing on the road if they get their
yeah,
ass beat. And
yeah.
that's like
Oregon says ball don't lie.
now the only thing I'll say to that is that like Ohio State at least has so different from Texas. So like if Texas beats A&M, that'll become their biggest win this year, winning at Texas A&M in Kyle Field. But then if you beat the doors off of them again, then it starts looking like, okay, but how good actually is Texas A&M? Because the signature win is a home win against LSU, who is now 7-4, maybe 8-4 after this weekend, maybe 7-5 after this weekend. Doesn't look so great now, does it? And they lost to South Carolina, then they lost to Auburn. Like now they start looking at Texas and Texas A&M a little differently. So I feel the same way about this, where it's like, okay, Ohio State actually has that win against Penn State on the road. They have that win this weekend against Indiana at home. Two teams that were undefeated before they met Ohio State. So you have to at least give that little bit of credit, even if they do get smoked in the Big Ten championship game. But Ohio State needs to not look ahead because this, I don't see Michigan having a chance because Michigan can't throw the ball.
Nope.
But it's rivalry week. This is when
The
we saw
reigning
what
national
happened last week.
champions.
We saw what happened last week. Like, there's some stuff that isn't supposed to happen that happens. So you can't put anything past anybody.
Nah, I
And
feel
Ohio
good.
State, Ryan Day has sucked at beating Michigan.
It's true.
So
If Ryan Day can't beat this Michigan team, you might as well fire him now. Like Jesus Christ. Like this is
no,
the
for
most
real.
this is the most layup slam dunk how you doing kind of game for Ryan Day and Ohio
Mm-hmm.
State against the still, and we forget, I don't, reigning
Raining.
national champions Michigan. Like, reigning and defending, it has not changed yet. They're still the defending national champions
That's
for
correct.
right
That's
now.
correct. Yeah.
With the flip of Bryce Underwood and Dave Portnoy and them throwing hella bread at him. Who knows what will
Mm-hmm.
happen in years to come? But right now, Ryan Day, they should win this game by 45.
Yeah,
I
they
think that's
should.
what's going to happen. I don't think Michigan
I
has a
think so
chance.
too.
I think this is like the first time, and this is the game. I think this is the greatest rivalry in college football.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it
This
is
is no
for
a
sure.
bar none. Even as the SEC homer, this is the greatest rivalry game in
Mm-hmm.
college football,
Mm-hmm.
bar
Mm-hmm.
none.
Yep.
I think Ohio State
It's
whoops
old.
them.
It's like the oldest and
Yeah,
has the most
the
like
most hate,
actual.
legitimate
Well, and
hate.
it has the actual most like parity
Right,
in the relationship where it's not
right,
been like this hammer and nail kind of thing.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So we talked about Penn State. Their
Yuck.
work is not done yet. They got to beat Maryland to stay in that. We only have one loss, and it's to Ohio State bragging rights territory, and then still miss the Big Ten championship. But they're also playing for a potential spot in the Big Ten championship because if Ohio State were to lose to Michigan, Penn State's in there.
Yes. I don't think they want that. I mean, they might. Who knows? But I don't, like
I doubt it. I wouldn't if I were them.
this is the this is the closest thing you can get to a rivalry game. I will never forget when I think it was when Maryland first joined the Big Ten from the
Mhm.
ACC, and they made, I don't think it was like a midweek game or mid-season game, and Maryland like refused to shake Penn State's hands at the coin toss in Beaver Stadium, and then Penn
Wow.
State whooped them. There's like a
Yeah.
little bit of like across state line stuff. Like there's a high
Mhm.
school, they have the Big 33 game where it's the best high school players from Pennsylvania and the best high school players from Maryland, and they play each other.
Okay.
So there's a little bit there. I think that Penn State beats the brakes off of Maryland. Maryland has not been good. Has very, very in the. I feel bad because they're like that team that falls into relevance every year in college football. Like they're in the Big Ten, but they don't do much. They are there for other sports, if we're being honest. I think Penn State, I don't think they're going to have the same thing that happened up in Minnesota. I think it's in Happy Valley. If this was down in College Park, it might be a little bit scary, but I think that Penn State takes care of business. No problem.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, one that I don't think is as open and shut a case as that one is Notre Dame,
I
number
don't
5
either.
at USC,
I don't
7.5
either.
point favorites. So I didn't know this, but like now that I think about it, it feels true. It must be because they said it on TV, But they were saying last night that USC has had the lead in the fourth quarter in every game this year.
Of all of their games?
Yes.
Aren't they like 5-5 or 6 and something?
They've lost. They're 6-5.
Yeah.
They've lost 5 games by a combined total of 19 points.
Wow. Well, I knew they had the one against Penn State, but I didn't realize that's how all their games were.
All their games are like close. They've lost by 1, lost by 3, lost by 2. Mm-hmm.
I listen.
This is a huge trap for Notre Dame to me.
I think it absolutely is. I'm glad that you feel this way. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to be like, because I'm such a Notre Dame hater, and that's just a me thing. But sometimes I let that hate blind me. Like I wanted Army to beat them so badly, even though it was never going to happen. But this is going to Southern Cal in LA, and this is once again a very long-standing historic rivalry. You're right. I think that Notre Dame is going to overlook, and they still have Miller. It's not Miller Moss anymore. I don't know if they're who USC is starting nowadays.
And I can't remember the kid's name, but no,
this is Lincoln Riley coaching for his job.
This kid can run too.
No, the kid's good. I know it's not Miller Moss anymore. I forget the kid's name. But this is Lincoln Riley coaching for his job. I think just a wee bit. Wait, so USC is favored? Who's favored here?
No, Notre Dame's favored by
minus 7.5. Okay.
Did I say? Oh, I had that wrong. That's on me.
That's okay. So Notre Dame is minus 7.5.
Yeah, Notre Dame by 7.5.
I think that's a fair line. I think it's going to be
within a touchdown. Let me fix that, people.
I think that'll be within a touchdown. No worries. I mean, they got Jeremiah Love back there. I mean, I want USC to beat Notre Dame. Will I be surprised if Notre Dame whoops USC? No, I think this is like Notre Dame's toughest competition to date, other than them playing Texas A&M in the beginning of the season. They have not played anybody throughout the entirety of their schedule up until right now.
Right.
Even their ACC games have not been the pride of the ACC. They haven't played Miami. They haven't played Clemson. They haven't played those schools. They haven't played SMU. Like they dodge like the true crop of the ACC, and they get to play. Notre Dame is literally like your blast from the past. They get to play these games these matchups that have existed for 50, 60 years that are not the same anymore. Because Notre Dame kept in their uptrend, and it's not like Navy is winning national championships anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just. I mean, this game, however, I like USC to cover. I think USC will cover. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they'll cover.
So, well, I mean, they've covered pretty much every game so far.
Yeah, that's what I like. Like the way you're talking. I love the 7.5. Give me a whole touchdown.
So they're 6-5. I'm gonna pull it up here. Jaden Mayava is the quarterback now for them. Yeah. So, but let's just look at this. I don't know why they have a picture of Auburn, but they do. But here's their schedule. So they beat us by a touchdown, beat Utah State 48-0, lost to Michigan by 3, beat Wisconsin 38-21. Like, oh, okay, Wisconsin sucks. Or no, I mean, Wisconsin's a great team, or their quality, whatever, better than whatever. Okay, well, USC beat them by 3 touchdowns practically. They lost to Minnesota by a touchdown, Penn State by a field goal, Maryland by 1. They beat Rutgers by 3 touchdowns. They lost to Washington by 5 points. And then they beat Nebraska and UCLA. And, like, you look at that schedule, and it's like, and that Washington game, like, they really crapped themselves. They had the ball, like, on the goal line multiple times and went, like, 4-and-out goal line stands both times. They could have just kicked field goals and won the game. But they went for it, touchdowns both times, and didn't get it either time. So this game is it sets up to be And I'm going to pull up the numbers because I want to show you like where. Oh shoot, failed. Because what Jordan Mayava brings to the table is different from what Miller Moss was doing. So here's Miller Moss, 64 percent completion, roughly the same there.
Mhm.
18-9 touchdowns versus 4-1. But what Jaden Mayava does is he's a little bit more of a running threat. 12 for 38, but that includes sack yardage. So, and he's only been playing for a couple of games. So he does bring that rushing element to it, to where it's he's not necessarily, we're not talking Jalen Milrow here or anything like that, but he does bring that element of being able to keep plays alive with his legs. And Woody Marks running the ball, and they've got some
Mm.
talent at receiver on the edge. It's not
The
a
trap
joke.
is set. The trap is set for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I, I,
Mm-hmm.
I would love USC to win. I don't want to get my heart broken, so I'll take USC to cover here.
Yeah,
Well, I am a betting man, but it's not
that's
really
right.
a betting show. But I do like USC to keep it close.
Yeah, and while we're hating on 80s and 90s juggernauts that are falling on hard times lately, Miami has a trap set for them.
In
They
the
got to go
dome,
into the
baby.
dome in Syracuse and try to beat this 10.5 point spread. I don't even know that they're guaranteed to win this game. Like this is one of those where it's like, oof, they're already writing checks with without the sufficient funds in the account.
Yeah.
Um, you've seen how they have played with their food, so to speak, with Virginia Tech, Cal, Duke, Louisville, and then they got by Georgia Tech. I think this sets up for Syracuse to possibly pull an upset here.
Are
I
you
don't
willing?
expect it to happen, but I think it's certainly going on the road against a team that what is Syracuse like? They're in that roughly around 500 range too,
Yeah,
aren't they?
they started out pretty hot, if I remember correctly. Like um Kyle McCord, he had the however many he had the multiple pick
Hmm.
six game, which is always tough. But I think he is the
Yeah.
quarterback that they needed. I think he's done very well for them.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I don't, and I don't think that he was the quarterback that Ohio State didn't need. I feel like Will
Right.
Howard was a semi-lateral move.
Yeah,
With
I think so too. I think.
you
Well,
know,
no, I think he was an
I said
upgrade.
semi-lateral. I think that he's
Yeah,
a
I
little bit
think
better, but not
he
like
was an
leaps and
upgrade.
bounds better.
Yeah, he was an
Um,
upgrade, but it's still,
Kyle
Kyle
McCord,
McCord was Ohio
3,900
State's
yards.
quarterback last year.
He was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, Kyle McCord, he's thrown for more yards than Cam Ward. He's 39. I mean, obviously Cam Ward runs the ball more.
Hmm.
Um, I think um, I think it could be closer. Once again another game.
Hmm.
Do you have the confidence to say it with your chest and put Miami on upset alert, or do you think it's just a possibility? You're Stephen
No,
A. Smith today.
no. It's just one of those like we
Yeah,
saw crazy shit happen last week. I
for
don't think
sure.
the crazy shit is over yet, and
No,
it doesn't. The crazy stuff doesn't necessarily have to be next weekend in conference championship games, which I don't even think is that crazy because you're talking about conference championship games. Like
the
those
two
teams
best
should be
teams.
pretty evenly matched,
Hmm.
relatively speaking. But no, like this is one of those where I'm like, hey, I'm not saying I expect this game to go that way, but I'm not going to be surprised, and I'm going to be rooting for it. So,
Yeah, I love it.
because I'm a hater, because Miami's a fraud. We've said it before. We'll continue to say it until Miami actually like proves by beating someone that's not like one of these trash ACC teams. I'm not buying it. Your signature win this year is like against Florida in week one when Florida was terrible and Graham Mertz was playing quarterback. So I
Hmm.
don't believe in you. Now I'm starting to believe in SMU.
Me too.
And Cal has to travel, that's not all the way across the country, but from Berkeley to Dallas is a pretty long
Yeah.
flight.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
13.5 point favorites. SMU's playing really well here of late. But again, this is one of those ones where don't get caught slipping
No, they
because
haven't yet. We thought they were going to.
Mhm.
They've so far proven that people want to keep saying we're not legit, and they've been
Mhm.
playing their way around as best they can essentially. Um, I mean, they avoided the pitfall last week. There was, trap game potential against UVA in Charlottesville. That was a real trap. Was going to Charlottesville to play UVA.
Yeah, right.
Now they get Cal coming to Dallas. I feel pretty. I think that SMU wraps up the regular season nicely in this one, going into the ACC championship.
Yeah, and then that's when Miami's really going to have their work cut out for them. That'll be their toughest matchup to date. So, including the Georgia Tech game that they lost.
Yep.
So Arizona State travels to Arizona again. It's rivalry week, so this is where they say. And shout out to the Cal SMU rivalry, by the way, for rivalry week. Let's not forget that one, age old rivalry. But yeah, Arizona State, Arizona. Arizona is actually. Is that wait? Do I have that right?
Did you do it again? I think you did it
again.
Did
I do it again? I think I did it again.
There's not a chance that Arizona's favored -9.
Terrible. I apologize, people. What's that guy's name that said I suck? He's right. I do suck. All right. Is this weekend's games? Yes. Okay. What the hell? Give me a second here. No, I just want the.
Yeah, it's Arizona State -8.5. If you look at the ESPN.
Okay, so then I did do it wrong. All right. Well, because some of these, like, you'd be surprised. Like, you're like, wait, why is the better team not favored? And it's because Vegas smells something that we don't know about.
This is one of the chances for Colorado to
sneak in.
Sneak in. Yeah. Like Arizona would have to win here. Arizona State wraps. Finally we'll have clarity in the Big 12. It literally took to the last week of the season to have essentially Big 12 playing games for the conference championship. You have prelims, pre-qualifiers, whatever you want to call it, that you have to get people in the Big 12 the murkiest of murky. And I know that the SEC up until last week was also just as murky.
So
here
if
we
it goes
are
chalk,
backwards. But
if it goes chalk, it's Arizona State, Iowa State.
Which I love how Iowa State was out of it, then out of it, now back in it. Like Iowa State was like one of the odds-on to win the Big 12 entirely and be in the college football playoff. And they were in it, out of it, now they're back in it. Yep. So Colorado needs BYU to lose, or do they need Iowa State to lose necessarily? It needs to be either BYU or Arizona State, right?
I can pull it up again. Let's do the scenario.
If you just have BYU lose, I think Colorado makes it in. I might be wrong though.
Is that right? Okay, let's see.
I might be wrong.
So BYU loses to Houston. Yeah, it's Colorado at the top.
Yep. Isn't that so weird how it just kicks Iowa State out? Like, that's wild.
Yeah. Well, because it switches from common opponents to or opponent's record, whatever, to this the winning percentage against all the number 10 teams. What is it? Anyway, it's a bizarre, like all these tiebreakers are not supposed to be happening,
right? The fact that we're having it's the craziest weekend, the craziest year of college football.
It's supposed to be more clear cut than this, and I'll say this, like, so yes, it's been a crazy year of college football, and so that's why, like, all of this stuff actually matters at this point, because we don't know. Like, you think you know,
we think we know,
don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know, because we have been proven to not know shit. Like,
yes,
we think we know, and then next thing you know, it's like, damn, I didn't see that coming.
The chalk has not been chalking.
No, the chalk has not been chalking. And it's gotten to the point now where, like, now we actually see some stuff that you shouldn't have been able to see.
No, that wasn't ever there.
Like I was talking about Oklahoma, like, Alabama better not fuck around, because they got to go to Norman, and Brett Venables might dial up a defense. Brett Venables dialed up a defense, But then there's other stuff where I'm like, damn, I did not think that was going to happen. I didn't think Colorado was going to lose this weekend.
I thought they could. I think it's going to be that bad, though.
No, well, yeah, that's what I should say. Like, I thought it was a chance that it was going to be.
The ball ran all over them.
But they got throttled.
Yeah.
And yes, Jalen Daniels, like, man, I'd be pissed if I was a Kansas fan, because, like, they should have won the Big 12.
Yeah, right. It's like, can we just give Kansas the Big 12? Like, Kansas is the best team in the conference right now.
They're the best team in the conference, and they're nowhere close to the championship.
They'll be playing in the Independence Bowl soon enough.
So you know who's not the best team in a conference? Purdue. They're freaking terrible.
Terrible.
Like
Catching balls in
literally
out
might
of
be
bounds.
they might be number 130 in college football. Like they're bad. I would say if you put them in the FCS playoffs, they would get bounced in the first round.
Well,
I'm not even joking. No, I'm not even joking. Like they're bad. They're
no, that's
awful.
fair.
Um, so Indiana, you better like freaking take care of business. I guess this is a rivalry because West
They're in
Lafayette and
Indiana.
Bloomington are like right down the road from each other. So
Yeah.
like it's we'll see what happens with that one. Indiana got to take care of business. They can stay alive for a potential Big Ten championship appearance. It's convoluted for how they would get there. You need some help big time. Definitely Ohio State losing, and probably Penn State losing as well, I think.
Yeah, I think they would.
Um, and then but it's just funny how like their their loss was closer, but their loss was more of a blowout, but they were playing at the shoe. Penn State was playing at home and
Mhm.
choked. And so Penn State's ranked fourth and Indiana's ranked 10th, and they had the
Yeah.
same record and the
Penn
same
State just
loss.
Jesus.
It's just funny. And Indiana was like blowing teams out that Penn State's barely beating. So make it make sense, committee. That's why I said that the recency bias is a thing because like if
Hmm.
you lose right now, it makes it worse. Like you fall farther than you can move up by winning right now.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, moving on. Washington, Oregon. I mean, look, this should not be a game we're even talking about,
I
but
know.
this is one of those ones that goes back a ways.
Hmm.
And it's not Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix
Oh,
this year.
those games were so
Um,
great last year too. They really were.
yeah, but again, Oregon, don't get caught slipping because if you lose this game, now you put yourself in jeopardy
If
of.
Oregon loses, the whole playoff system is
I'm
going to
just
be
saying,
jacked
like,
up.
and it shouldn't happen. They're playing in
This is like
Eugene. Yeah, but
this is
but
the
like
one slam dunk the conference the playoff committee has. This is the singular team
yeah.
that they have a slam dunk with. Everything else is so up in the air. Like if Oregon loses, it's the whole thing is going to go sideways.
But that whole roster from last year's Washington team is not gone.
No,
Yeah, they're
well, yeah,
missing Michael Penix and Roma Dunze and missing their head coach Kalen DeBoer, but they
yeah.
did beat USC at home, and I know USC is 6-5, but again, we looked at their record and like who they've played and how they lost those 5 games by a total of 19 points, and they've got some quality wins. Um, don't sleep on Washington. That's all I'm saying. Like this is one of those semi rivalry games. It's not like Washington State or Oregon State, but it's still a pretty good rivalry. And shout out to the Big Ten and the Pac-12 for screwing that up, by the way, because now Washington State can't even play during rivalry week, and Oregon State can't play during rivalry
I
week
know.
because they're not in the same conferences anymore. So it's
Mm,
terrible. Kansas State, Iowa State. Weirdly enough, you have two teams that are both kind of playing for still something because even though Kansas State has 3 losses now in the conference, crazy mayhem could ensue where you can end up with multiple 3-loss teams tied for one or both of the Big 12 championships. and
gross.
then and then you're going to and then that's where uh, Iowa State is one of those teams that like if they win this game and then win next weekend, win the Big 12, man, you must be sleepy as
I am
hell.
tired.
Um, if
Try
they win
not
this
to.
game and then win the Big 12 championship, they actually could make it to where the Big 12 is safe in the playoff because Iowa State is good enough. They're up there to where if they win out, they get this quality win. That's going to move them up a little bit. If they win the Big 12 championship, that's another quality win that's going to move them up a little bit. It may be enough to overtake Tulane in that fifth uh, conference champion spot.
Yeah.
So, but another one that has some
Oh my god.
championship implications.
Does
Nevada UNLV, yeah, because all right, so let's go to it.
the UNLVs are they in the other? Are they playing in the Mountain
UNLV is
West?
still alive. Well, they're still alive to play Boise State for the championship, in the Mountain West. So let's pull it up here. So if UNLV wins, and I think it's Utah State beats Colorado State, then it's UNLV Boise State for
Which is,
this
I think that's the best
conference
game you can
championship.
get.
Yeah, and if that happens, and then UNLV wins that game, again, this is what we're talking about.
Mm.
UNLV at 22, if they beat Boise State, now that knocks Boise State out of it. And does UNLV have enough juice to
That'd be
overtake a
crazy.
Tulane or somebody like that? Because Boise State and UNLV would switch spots. And then it's just a matter of like, is Tulane's resume good enough to keep them ahead of a UNLV? Or is UNLV's resume good enough to get them ahead of Colorado or whoever wins the Big
If
12?
Boise State falls off, you're talking about even more craziness. If
Oh,
Boise
yeah.
State falls off, then you're
Hmm.
talking about I don't even know what you're talking about, honestly.
Hmm.
Is it like, do you elevate another Mountain West team? Do you elevate the American Conference champion? Like it gets really ugly if Boise State falls apart.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And then the last one that we're going to talk about is Houston BYU. BYU favored by 12 and a half, which is crazy because they've been like underdogs or
They
like
have been.
narrow favorites for like
When they
every
were ranked higher, they were underdogs
yes.
against teams.
So, and Houston just beat Kansas State. Granted, it was in Houston a few weeks ago, but they've got a couple of pelts on the wall. They're like 4-7, but
Yeah.
they're still a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And if BYU doesn't take care of this, they're out of the Big 12 championship, and that's where somebody else gets a shot at it. BYU wins this game and then goes and wins the Big 12 championship. They're another one, just like Iowa State, where they're close enough to the top that they could bounce out either the Mountain West or the American
Mm-hmm.
champion. If it's not Boise State winning the Mountain West, that is.
Yeah.
And so, like we talked about, like the Ole Miss game as it being like a rivalry week game, but not but Ole Miss is still actually mathematically alive to make a playoff appearance, because if we see some chaos like we saw last week, where you have 5 or 6 teams in the top 20 go down again,
Mm-hmm.
well, a team like Ole Miss is right there
They are. They're
with
waiting.
multiple quality wins and could slide right into one of those spots because they're what are they at 13, 14?
They're down, but they're right above Bama. I think they're
Yeah,
one spot. I think
they're
it's
13.
13. Yeah,
13 and
they're
Bama's
down, but they're
14.
not out. We want them to be
Right.
down. We want them to be out, but the realistic
Right.
situation is you can have a chaotic weekend and might be right back in there.
And Alabama's not out. Like
No,
they're
they're absolutely
down
not.
but not out.
There's a
And
specific reason that those two are sitting at 13, 14.
yep.
They're
Yeah,
literally
because
they're literally hanging out, waiting for something to happen.
they're telling you that
They're
they're like
protecting that.
they're basically telling all those teams ranked ahead of them, like, don't screw up.
It's like they're waiting.
We,
Don't
we will
let
replace you. We will replace you. This is like your girlfriend's got her ex's phone number in her phone still.
Yeah, right. It's like, who's that? Oh,
She's,
that was the pizza guy. Don't worry about it.
she's just waiting for you to fuck up so she can go back. Oh shoot. So yeah, so be careful. Be careful. There the gumps are lurking, man. They
Yeah.
always lurking, even when they don't deserve to be. And I'll say this for me, and this is not just Alabama hate, but like you think about if it's any other school gets run by a team as bad as Oklahoma this late in the season,
Mm.
you're not anywhere close to being in the playoff.
Even if it was us, like if we were in that spot, we're done.
And
Like
and,
I
and
think,
I don't think what can Alabama possibly do to improve their resume at this point? Beat Auburn? Ooh, what? It's meaningless. Like you're
no,
supposed to beat Auburn. They're terrible too.
right. I don't. I agree. Even with the chaos, I don't think they deserve it. Just because a bunch of
Like
other teams are going to
if you
lose a
beat
game.
Auburn 56-0, I don't care. You lost to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns.
That should be enough for the committee
That
to leave it alone.
done. Bye.
But the committee's going to be like, if you just give Jalen Milrow that chance, he's going to do something, which he probably would. But they don't deserve it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, one, and not only that, but they ain't running that gauntlet Like they're not
No,
going on the
no.
road they're not going on the road in the playoff and beating somebody and then go into a neutral site and beating like the 3 seed or the 2 seed or something. 'Cause that's what we were looking at. Like realistically speaking, we're looking at it's going to be Alabama would get like the 10 or 11 or something like that, and then they're
Mhm.
going to have to go play the 2 or the 3 seed in the second round. Um, Good luck, man. But anyway, that's why we play the games. We'll
That's
never
why we
know
play
until
games.
and we actually get to talk about that's why we play the games now.
Yeah.
Because the way it used to be was we don't know why we play the games because people in offices that went to these schools just vote and they just say, yeah, no, we think that, and I'll never forget my favorite one ever. And I'm just going to take this opportunity because we've heard all this stuff about how the SEC is overrated and the Big Ten's just as good, or there was a little back and forth with myself and one of our friends who's been on this show before, who shall remain nameless, but his name rhymes with Jeremiah. Um, we were talking about how,
He's
um,
Jeremiah this week. Remember that.
yeah, that's right, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
'Cause there's no M's, um, no M's, all X's, but the depth of the SEC and the strength of the SEC, like you now have a 16 team conference in the SEC. 8 of those teams, that's half of the conference, that has won a national championship since the BCS era started.
Yep.
The Big Ten, now 18, added multiple teams to the conference just to add one more national championship to that. So now they're at 3. Ohio State has one. No, it's 4. It's four, but 3 teams. Ohio State has a couple. Michigan has one, and USC has one, and that's it.
Nebraska. Did they ever win a BCS? No.
Nebraska lost
Okay.
to Tennessee.
Okay, and then that with Tennessee
They
just
didn't. They haven't won. They haven't won since the BCS.
gotcha.
They made an appearance, but they did not win.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah. So it's but even now you look at it and we get into this. Okay, so the depth of the conference and all this stuff. We're at a point now where your alums don't just get to say like, oh yeah, we're we think these 2 teams should be playing for the national championship, because that was Kirk Herbstreit saying that the best 2 teams in college football were Ohio State and Michigan, and that the national championship should be a rematch of that. Do you remember that game that was like 41-40 or something like that? Some crazy game in two. Hey,
You're still there.
an alarm went off. Apologies, but it's 2006 or 7, 2006.
Was that the
Um,
Florida, Ohio State,
Barn burner,
Florida
last game of the
after?
season. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't hear you.
Hello.
Okay.
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, my audio is screwed up. All right. Well, anyway, I'm just going to finish this and I'm going to wrap up the show and we'll get out of here. But yeah, Ohio State beat Michigan in this barn burner of a game, and Kirk Herbstreit went on national TV and said that the best 2 teams in college football were Michigan and Ohio State, and that they should have a rematch for the national championship because nobody else even compares. The eye test told him that nobody even deserves to be on the field, and it should be those 2 teams because those are the best 2 teams. That's not how it went. Michigan did not get into the BCS national championship game. Florida did. And
Mm-hmm.
after Ted Ginn ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown,
That was
that was
it.
all she wrote. Florida beat the piss out of Ohio State. And just another example of SEC dominance. Florida won 2 out of the next 3. LSU won the one in between against Ohio State. So shout out to Ohio State for being really good in the Big Ten and being, really good nationally, but just
Best
not good
doormat.
enough to have that many national championships.
The
So
best doormat that existed.
anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm off of it. Yes, we are going to talk shit about other teams. So if you don't like that, find another podcast. But if you like this one, like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to comment, even if you do hate it and you do think I suck. Don't say anything mean to Tyler though. He can't take it. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, that's a wrap for this week. We hope you enjoyed Thanksgiving. Everybody have a good weekend. I'm Chad. He is Tyler. The South End Zone is out of here. Peace, y'all.